keep sending an invoice. So that was probably the January.
Okay. So do you not want me to sign it?
That's for February. Yeah. Yeah, January was paid, the last one. But she sent both of them back to us. I don't know if that's why she put that there. I don't know why. Yeah. Just have with her paperwork, I'm not sure.
You're all set whenever you're ready.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'd like to call the Douglas School Committee to order on March 15th at 7 p.m. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. I'd like to read the Douglas mission statement. The Douglas Public Schools offers a diverse learning experiences that meet the academic, social, and physical and emotional needs of all of our students. We provide a safe, supportive, and challenging learning environment in which all students may achieve academic success and personal growth. Decisions are made in the best interest of our students. I'd like to go a little out of order this evening and call up the student representatives that we have, Ryan Bowen and Nick Gottenberg, please.
Hello, everyone. Douglas High School has been busy with all the academic events alongside extracurricular activities. Quarter 3 closes on Friday, March 31st. MCAS ELA testing will be held on March 28th and 29th. For school athletics, the DHS boys basketball qualified for the MIAA state tournament. They played a competitive game against Roxbury Prep Charter in the first round. We congratulate them for an amazing season as it comes to an end. The DHS boys indoor track sprint medley team qualified for indoor national at the New Balance track in Boston. Colin Squire, Dominic Rossi, Luke Lightbound, Linus Bividas ran an amazing meet to finish off their impressive season. Student activities have also had a busy month. 8 students competed at the DECA States held in Boston from March 10th to 11th.
DHS was well represented by Taylor Fergala, Chloe McDonald, Tyler Beck, Travis Kings, Eric Picanzo, Riley Kenny, Renee Danserow, and Lillian George. The Douglas Marching Band has recently participated in the St. Patrick's Day Parade in Worcester on March 12th and will march again in Providence on March 18th. We also had 12 student council members attend the 3-day Massachusetts Association of Student Council annual conference in Hyannis from March 8th to 10th. Students attended workshops and student team bonding activities. They participated in an event called the Polar Plunge, where all funds were raised for the Special Olympics. Attendees Hannah Purvis, Erica Auer, Caitlin Forget, Ava Hare, Emily Ramsdell, Megan Brazo, Olivia DeFalco, Julia Argel, Luke Lightbound, Josh Roulier, Gavin Gulteri, and Michael O'Toole, alongside with their chaperones, Miss Floria and Miss Novicki, who all had a fantastic time. Overall, DHS has had an amazing month and is looking forward to all their spring activities and sports.
Any questions?
Before you leave, any good news on colleges?
Not yet.
No decisions yet.
No decision?
Yeah,
We have a top choice yet?
you go
Yeah,
first.
my top choice is UConn right now.
UConn?
You Tampa.
You Tampa, all right, excellent. And we ready for spring sports Monday?
Oh, yeah.
All right.
Right.
Thank you.
Well, thank you so much for coming. Dear parents, guardians, members of the Douglas Public Schools community, I would like to address both the concerns that have been raised by the member of the community as well as the recent designation of our Director of Special Education and Student Services. At the onset, I want to ensure you all it is the explicit mission of the Douglas Public Schools to provide a safe, supportive, and challenging learning environment so that all of our students, including students with disabilities, may achieve academic success and personal growth. Please note that this committee and our superintendent take these concerns raised by parents regarding the delivery of services and the special education process seriously. We consider the delivery of high-quality education of students with disabilities to be a vital part of the mission of the Douglas Public Schools. And we fully expect the community to be hold us accountable to the success of all of our students. There is a lot that goes into the day-to-day running of the special education department. First and foremost is making our students and staff have what they need to succeed. That includes, but is not limited to, up-to-date IEPs, professional development, supplies, materials, resources, access to programs, running meetings, compliance, working with the staff, outside agencies, and our families. That is what is at the forefront and what people see. There are several other aspects of the roles that are important for a variety of reasons. To fulfill its responsibilities, the Special Education Department is responsible for transportation, understanding special education, laws, writing, managing, and overseeing grants, managing and overseeing the special education budget, writing contracts, circuit breaker, paperwork, etc. Although some of these areas are rarely seen by the students and families, each of them are a critical element of ensuring both staff and student success. I want to address the recent vacancy of the Director of Special Education position. We are actively seeking to fill the vacancy on an interim basis and hope to have an update on that shortly. Although this vacancy was unexpected, we are committed to ensuring with the support of both the school committees, school staff, and we will continue to provide services to each student is entitled to during this period. We believe as does our superintendent, that this vacancy provides us with the opportunity to bring the best candidates possible to fill the position going forward. To that end, the district will be engaging a professional recruitment firm to conduct a thorough and comprehensive search so that we are able to hire the best possible permanent candidate to move us forward. It is clear that the community is asking for a stable and effective special education leadership, for a system that supports the students in reaching their highest potential and supports families as they navigate through the special education process. The school committee and the superintendent also share that same sentiment. That is, and always has been, our expectation. As we move forward with the school committee, the superintendent remain committed to working collaboratively with our community, with our staff, and especially our families, to achieve that goal. As we seek to fill this position, we welcome candidates with the talent and expertise to address the needs of our Douglas students and who will embrace and celebrate all of their achievements. Our district is full of incredible people who are passionate about education and wanting the best for our students. The growth and the success of our special education program depends on the collaboration of parties at all levels, families, staff, administration, to ensure we are moving forward. As we address present concerns and implement new short and long-term steps, we will ask you to join us in creating a welcoming space for the special education staff. We also ask that you maintain open communication about the process and share what is going on, not only meeting the needs of our students, but also building an environment in which our students with disabilities can thrive, meet their academic and personal potential. That will be vital to the success of our students, staff, and the department. Be assured that with your assistance, we will be moving as expeditiously as possible to achieve that goal. We thank you, families, for your time, your passion, your being here tonight, and for bringing your concerns to our attention. We are positive that with a strong collaboration and communication, we can best serve our special education community. I present this on behalf of the school committee. We are all dedicated to you all. Before I open up public comment, there's a couple of other things you all need to know what the roles and responsibility of us being on the school committee are. So I'm going to read from the Massachusetts General Law. Public participation at school committee meetings at all regular and special meetings of school committee shall be open to the public. Executive sessions will be held as prescribed by the state and Commonwealth of Massachusetts. The public comment is not a decision, debate, or a dialogue between individuals and the school committee. It is an individual's opportunity to express an opinion on issues of which the school committee's authority, to ensure compliance with open meeting laws, privacy laws, and other legal obligation. The committee will not engage with a speaker or one another in a deliberation on comments as they are presented during public comment. It is at the discretion of the committee may schedule issues raised by a speaker for deliberation in a future meeting. So, other part of this too, we only do public comment up to 30 minutes. So I'm going to need somebody to take the time for 30 minutes. A public speaker can come up and read for 3 minutes. We'll have to have a timekeeper for the 3-minute part of it. Once we hit the 30 minutes, we can ask, the school committee can make a decision whether they want to continue on or not. So when you come up to speak, I would ask that you state your name, your address, and then we can go for it. Priority is always given to our students, so if we have any students here first, I'd like to hear from them first. And with that, we'll open it up for public comment.
Do I know who starts the timer? Hi, my name is Heather Simmons. I'm actually a teacher at the middle school. I'm one of the special ed teachers. Never had to do this. 17 years I've been in this district as a special ed teacher. I'd like to say, first and foremost, I'm in disbelief as well at what we're facing. When I think back of how it's gone the last few years, I really feel how I was 17 years ago. I don't feel the same. I know that comes with experience. But the main thing I kept coming back to was community. I feel like lately, sitting in the classrooms every day with everybody's students, it's becoming a battle or a war between our community. We've lost that love of Douglas, why I wear the blue. I know it's hard to be a parent. I know it's hard to be the school committee members and the admin and the teachers. But I work, because I'm in 6th grade with 17 years. There isn't a person I work with that hasn't worked 17 years. From the para I work with to, well, we have someone with a little more experience. And we put out our heart every day. And it is very tough to battle that on a daily basis from every parent who doesn't believe when we do something, it's not the best interest of these children. I had a long spiel about, our experience. I could give you our numbers. Mr. O'Brien did our numbers. We're in the hundreds of years of experience in our building. To say that we don't love your children isn't true, and I know you know that. Many of you have seen me before, or will see me, sorry in advance for whatever I might say in the future. But the truth is, as a teacher, I've always felt like I chose this job because of the students, and middle school fell in my lap because of who I am and what I need to do. And I don't work with someone that doesn't feel that way. They are dedicated. They are focused on the priority of your child. And this is a bump in the road that hopefully will only be a bump. It might be a little more than a bump. But we need to work together, and we need to stop fighting amongst ourselves and tearing ourselves apart. Communicate with your liaisons. We're there for you. And if they aren't, they're communicating with me, because I'm unfortunately the senior staff in the district. Makes me laugh. Because I don't always take my job so seriously, because I love it. Yep. Please remember that when this gets ugly. Please remember who you're here for. And I know you're fighting for them, but so are we.
I
And if
have
there's
to
that
stop
wall,
you.
we're
Sorry,
done.
Mrs. Simmons, I have to stop you.
I understand,
Thank
Mrs.
you so
Moore.
much for coming.
Please remember that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
It's not you.
Can you state your name and your address, please?
Absolutely. Devin Clancy, 92 South Street.
Thank you so much.
And we're good.
Yep.
Good evening. I'm a mom of 3 students currently enrolled in the Douglas school system. I've been here once before, requesting this district be proactive instead of reactive. Yet tonight, I find myself here again. The youngest of my 3 children, a 5th grader, is on an IEP. For the first time in years, I had what one could consider a productive and collaborative meeting on Monday of this week. For that, I am thankful to all parties involved. While I await all the amended paperwork for full review of the discussed and agreed upon corrections and additions, it doesn't change what has transpired up to this point. I would like to reference a document formerly known as SEPS, but now called the Conditions of Assistance, the IDEA Part B Funding Certifications. What this public document does is outline the specifications required in order to accept the state's funding. It has 4 signatures on it, and verbatim reads, "These signatures indicate that the requirements have been read and understood by all." It signifies the assurances made to DESE on behalf of Douglas that the district will be in compliance as the conditions dictate. These documents are signed off by the superintendent, a school committee representative, the school's business official, and the director of special education. These legal documents have been violated with respect to my son. The violations have occurred with regard to IEPs, the process for which they should be conducted and subsequently executed, the manner in how meetings are handled regarding collaboration, including both parental and teacher input, and the free, appropriate public education, the FAPE promise to our children, which directly addresses the very unique and individualized needs of each child as part of the conditions for accepting the state's money. Just a few of my own family's personal experiences have included no follow-up on verbal and emailed requests for IEP corrections regarding missing items, yet the email was acknowledged by other recipients. I have received an IEP with the wrong child's name indicated and included as part of what looks to be a cut-and-paste narrative, and in itself is a clear FERPA violation. There was a complete lack of testing which was discussed, documented as needed, and we were told in a meeting they admittedly dropped the ball. Additionally, there have been multiple days in which my son was denied access to his education entirely due to not having the appropriate staff available in his school building. These are just some examples of one child on an IEP. Please think about that. One family's experience out of how many others here in Douglas with their own valid concerns and complaints. How many more do you need? This legally binding contract has been willfully disregarded by administration, and yet still no accountability. If not you, then I ask who? You have asked me, a parent, to listen to yet another set of plans, outlining the promises of fixing the problems, righting the wrongs. We have heard this how many times these past few years? Again, reactive, not proactive. I think it's clear our collective concerns are increasing in numbers, challenging the words of reassurance and promises of change on their credibility. Unfortunately, the actions taken thus far have been loud and clear. Our children are the ones suffering real meaningful losses each and every day that this disconnect between administration and the kids' educational needs is allowed to continue. No more words. It's beyond time for a real change here in Douglas that will prove effective, and we need to see some true accountability here. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Can you state your name and your address, please?
Sure. Kristen Johnson, 108 Maple Street.
Thank you.
All right. You let me know. Okay. Hello, I'm a parent of a 3rd and 5th grader at Douglas Elementary School. My child, who is in 5th grade, currently has a 504 plan and has received 4 IEP denials over the course of his schooling career so far. My child does not have a life-threatening medical condition or a severe disability, learning or otherwise. So I have not had the pleasure of an IEP. We have only been allowed a 504, which I hope will be changing this year. Though as far as I have heard, it wouldn't have mattered, for many of this year's IEPs aren't even being worked on or many progress reports not done. I'm constantly trying to advocate for his needs and constantly hitting a wall, which is incredibly frustrating. My child is extremely intelligent. He scores very high in a lot of areas that he's been tested on. And while you might think that's amazing and great, which it is, this is where I see the flaws in the system. My child has autism as well as Erland syndrome, which is a visual processing disorder. Neither of these are severe enough to make his day-to-day activities impacted so much that he needs constant help, and for that I'm grateful. But what that means is that it's much harder to get him the services he does need simply because he meets benchmark testing and shows forward progress. That's the bar and the line in the sand for him. Even if his writing isn't much better than what it was when he was in 1st grade. The system is clearly broken. The year that COVID hit, the year that Dr. VR started his position, we were denied any accommodations during virtual learning for his processing disorder. It was at that time, as a single parent, full-time working mom, I pulled my children and homeschooled them for that year. And they excelled so much, and it showed me exactly the gaps and what was needed. However, when I asked for these things the next year, we were still denied. So, Dr. VR, I'd like to address something I've heard you say many times, That's the word "we." You use it often to say that we need to do better, we need to put plans in place. But clearly, given the recent and multiple resignations, this isn't so much a "we." And us as parents definitely are not part of the "we," since we're the ones doing our absolute best and more for our children every single day. So I'd like to really start hearing you take responsibility for the issues at hand and the administration you are in charge of. Start holding people accountable, yourself included, where needed. This did not happen by accident. We need to get real answers to understand why our children aren't getting their needs met. So in closing, I'd like to just say that we as parents are demanding some real answers and change. We heard everything you had to say, or in reality, what you didn't say at all at the meeting Monday night regarding the plan, but what we heard is that there really isn't one. We heard you deflect almost every single important question and flat out refuse to answer others. It is clear that there is an absolute absence of a unified and shared vision among the staff and administration, which isn't the way a school should be run. Our children's education, social, and emotional progress is being hindered, and it's time for that to end. I think it's time for a change in administration, specifically the superintendent position, and this needs to happen sooner than later. Let someone come into the role who better understands the needs and can do a much better job fixing the mess we're currently in. Because without that change in leadership, this ship is sinking quickly. Thank you for your time.
We're 10 minutes.
Hi,
Good evening. Can you state your name and your address, please?
Jonna Peliquin, 10 Fairbanks Court.
Thank you.
I have been a member of this town for 26 years. Both of my children have graduated from high school here, 2018 and 2022. 21, 22. I've been involved in many different areas in this town. I am now an employee of the Douglas Middle School. But my concern here isn't so much my position at the school, but my concern is for the town itself. I watched the meeting on March 1st, and my very first thought process when CPAC got up to make their presentation was a complete and total conflict of interest. I can't see how someone can be on school committee and can get up and present for CPAC. To me, that was completely and totally wrong and should not have been allowed. Many people have been on the school committee that have also been in another position, whether it be an athletic booster, whether it be a PTO, whether it be whatever. They have never gotten up and presented. That, in my mind, put everything that was said and stated askewed. I can't see how that could happen. And if, also, the numbers that were given. We keep talking about, the conversation was, we've heard. Parents don't feel like their voices are being heard. Well, you know what? Maybe the staff feels the same way. And here we are, we're beating them up. We keep talking about social and emotional. Social and emotional is across the board. Across the board. Not just special ed, but general ed. Not just general ed, our teachers, our paras. Every one of them, our ABAs, our principals, they're working their tails off. You want to know when we're going to get change? We're going to get change when we have more money. This town doesn't have any money. You're beating a dead horse. Want to know why we can't get good staff and keep good staff? Because we don't pay them. And the ones that are here for a reason. And none of those reasons are the ones that I'm hearing. We're arguing, we're fighting, we're bickering, we're pointing fingers, we're blaming. Stop it. Come together as a community or nothing's gonna change. We've gone through too many admin, too many changes, and when the push comes to shove, it comes down to money. That's it. We all know it. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Hello.
Good evening. Can you state your name and your address, please?
Stephanie Gilbert at 21 Gilboa.
Thank you.
I'm kind of on both sides of the coin. I am a parent to 2 children in the school district, one being severely autistic, nonverbal. I'm also currently hired as an ABA para, so I get to experience all across the board. We came back to Massachusetts from living in Georgia, and the night and day differences when we first moved to Douglas, I felt like I won the lottery. Douglas was amazing. It was like anything I could have ever wanted for my child was just, the analogy I used, handed on a silver platter, just sign the dotted line. I don't feel that way anymore. And most of it, unfortunately, was 2 great staff members that have left. And as we just heard, we know finances. I was actually surprised to learn Monday night that Douglas is one of the least paying within Blackstone Valley. But I just want to share one thing that was, I feel, not fully exposed on our most recent meeting, because the question has come out why we're losing so many of our staff, and it was kind of smoothed over. You know, they're getting better opportunities, expanding their horizons. But per quoting what a most recent person has said, in quotes, "In the absence of a unified and shared vision and without mutual respect for the work necessary to assure success in the academic, social, and emotional progress of our school students and professional growth of our school staff, I have determined that further efforts expanded by me to be non-fruitful." Right from a staff member who just left, black and white. There's our answer. There's lack of communication, there's lack of support. Right now, due to the circumstances, I know somebody that's working basically the positions of 5 different people. Is she getting compensated for these 5 different roles? No. Do you think she's gonna get burnt out and probably leave too? Most likely, if it keeps going this way. So it's not just parents that are frustrated, it's teachers and the staff too, because it's affecting everybody. And there just has to be a better answer than just smoothing things over. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Good evening. Can you state your name and your address, please?
Hello, Taryn Mead, 120 U Street.
Thank you.
I also come as a parent and a teacher in a different district. As a parent, I've been able to advocate for my kids and really push for an Orton Gillingham program and work on things for that. But tonight I'd like to talk about a teacher as a teacher role. Working in the Blackstone Valley, I have a lot of colleagues in different towns, and to have someone come up to me, multiple people, and say, what's going on in Douglas in regards to what's happening in our special ed outside of Douglas is disheartening, is concerning. And I've had the opportunity to speak closely with 2 people that have resigned from the district this year. And they've let me know that they're not leaving because of the families, and they're not leaving because of the colleagues and the students that they love and they care for. We have great educators here. They're not leaving to teach in Wellesley or Wayland. They're leaving to go to Northbridge and Webster. And they're speaking about resigning under conditions of a culture created by administration where they cannot stay. And they're talking about being not able to be compliant and set up to fail. And when they bring that to someone's attention, they're told to lie if needed. Yes, there's budget issues across the state. Yes, there's more turnover in education than there's ever been. Before 2020, it was unheard of. I've never seen or heard of a teacher leaving in the middle of the year. Since then, yeah, that happens. That's happened in my district. But to have 9 special education administration leave in the last 3 years, to have 3 special education teachers this year alone, at least to date, leave, and the majority of our administrative team in the last 3 years leave, is alarming. To hear Dr. Merrick's resignation, she's sounding an alarm. I don't know who is to blame and I don't know how to fix the problem, but I know that we cannot afford the reputation that is coming out of Douglas. We cannot afford to lose the educators that are here that love our children and want to be here with our children. Those educators deserve better. They deserve to know that they're in a they have stability and they have respect from the community and from their administration. They deserve adequate staffing in their building so they are not pulled thin and made so they cannot meet compliance. They deserve training, development, and mentorship for and towards their license, and we need to find a way so that we do not continue to lose the educators that we have in this district.
Thank you.
Hi, Sarah Hutnack, 72 North Street. I do apologize, I do have issues with my vocal cords. At night, my voice is not so great, so. Good evening. As you're all aware, we have a crisis on our hands. We've been seeing a high turnover rate of staff, especially in our special education department. It was recently brought to my attention that upon exiting of staff members, there is an exit interview. However, the interview information is not available to the school committee, and it is part of their personnel file. I would like to urge the school committee to add additional steps to the exit interview process. I would like all staff to be given an opportunity to voice their issues and concerns, perhaps in a survey or other forms, that this information is then made available to the school committee upon leaving. I feel this will help with transparency and allow the school committee to be aware of any issues or concerns there are. We need to be doing better. We can do better. We need to ensure that our most vulnerable students are getting the help and services that they need, and to ensure their success now and in the future. And in order to do this, we need to have consistency in our special education staff and department, and not a revolving door. Thank you.
Anybody else for public comment?
Good evening. My name is Debbie Quinama, 259 Southwest Main Street in Douglas. I'm here as an advocate, and I am a special education teacher in another district. I come here to, first of all, ask Mr. Superintendent, since this is the end of your contract, whether or not you plan to pursue negotiating, continuing your contract, or are you planning to leave to go to another district? I think that needs to be transparent right off the bat. Secondly, I would also like to know if you would be willing, in full transparency, to give these teachers legal amnesty to disclose the reasons why they've left to families, to the community, to the school committee, to administrators. I do not feel that anything was addressed at the meeting. I think that everything was fluffed off with. I cannot speak to that. I will not speak to that. We cannot go any further with staff exit interview information. What is the point of an exit interview if you don't review it and if it's confidential? I feel that this has been going on for a very long time, and I have encouraged my family members not to reject the IEPs over and over and over again due to violations. And I feel that the teachers that have had the courage to leave the district due to being asked to put their licenses on the line and falsify data and information is saying something so very clear to the community that they're willing to take that leap of faith for their students. So I do not blame the teachers in any way, shape, or form. I do not blame the team chairs. We know special education is a nonstop job. You don't stop thinking about it. You write IEPs, goals, whatever's all the time. But it is a legally binding document. And this legally binding document has been violated in my family for going on 5 years now. And I'm sure a lot of community members here also feel the same. So I would ask if we could have answers about your plans for the future now that your contract ends in '23, as well as would you be willing to give that amnesty to the employees that have resigned so that they can speak their feelings about what happened and how the district got to this point. Thank you very much.
We have enough for 2 more people. Anybody else?
Danielle Kaufman, 1 Crescent Lane.
Thank you.
Good evening. I am a parent of 2 children in the Douglas school system, 1 in middle school and thriving, and 1 in the elementary school on an IEP. I have previously spoken this year at a school committee meeting about these continuing special education issues and was quite hopeful with Dr. Merrick being in place. Personally, that hope started to come to fruition as Dr. Merrick went above and beyond for my child, but one person cannot do it alone, and in-classroom issues continued. Dr. Vieira, whether you publicly want to comment it or not, Dr. Merrick made a very strong statement by forwarding her resignation reasoning to the community. Clearly, there is a confirmed issue within the special education department, and ultimately, that lies with you. On the Monday Zoom meeting, you referred to a third-party audit being done of the department. Is that because you did not agree with the assessment Dr. Merrick did earlier this year? If you pick a third party that you agree with, do we go with that one? My child is a part of the 5th grade class that has had multiple issues since the 3rd grade. I was at first pleasantly surprised on Monday's Zoom call to hear that many primary school parents were very satisfied with the services their children are receiving. Then, after thinking about it, I became saddened for them. They have no idea how it will go once they hit the elementary school. I hope that they do not have to have their children ask them why they are different, why they can't read as good as their classmates. I hope they do not have to have reassurances from a pediatric neurologist that there is nothing inherently wrong with their child's brain, that they should be able to read at grade level. These are all things that my husband and I have had to encounter in the last 3 years. I'm going to skip that part because I want to address something else. My child goes to the middle school next year, and we are terrified at what that holds. My child is not prepared. My child cannot read at grade level and should be. You have failed not only my child, but many others in this district. My ask would be this, Dr. Vieira. Please attend the 5th grade graduation activities. Please congratulate these kids on making it through despite all the obstacles presented to them the last 3 years. And please, seek out my child. Let my child know how you let him down, how you have not set him up for success. You were so proud of your graduation statistics on Monday Zoom. Let me remind you that there are numerous studies that show many kids can graduate and can't actually read or write, so they become irrelevant. I truly appreciate the time and effort that many teachers put in. I'm just wondering how many of them we have to go through before our children can actually start to see some progress. Dr. Vieira acknowledged getting many complaints on the Zoom call, yet it was Dr. Merrick's resignation that was a catalyst to even having an open forum with parents. Stop placating parents. This do-nothing school board needs to start holding people accountable. Your excuses have become comical, only I can't laugh because actual children are suffering. A start would be to hold Superintendent Vieira accountable. And I would like to address the teacher that spoke. I think I speak for a lot of parents in this room. It is not you. We know you did not get into teaching because it's glamorous, sexy, and you're going to make $1 million. We get that, and we appreciate you each and every day. So thank you.
Anybody else for public comment? Seeing that there is none, I'm going to go forward to any old business we need to discuss.
Business.
We'll go into new business and the superintendent's report, please.
So I'd like to have Mrs. Keegan and our food service director come speak. We received a school nutrition equipment assistant grant. So just some good news coming out of the work that Raquel did along with Courtney. Oh, it's all Raquel? All Raquel.
She did all the hard work.
So the Department of Education had a school nutrition equipment assistant grant, tongue tie, school nutrition equipment assistance grant, which, I put myself in my staff shoes on a regular basis. I'm in their kitchens, I'm with them, I see them, I support them the best I can. Stephanie?
I can verify when I work with them.
Yes. So when I see that equipment needs to be, updated, I do everything in my power to make sure that happens, money or not. So I'm very thankful that this grant was available. We received $21,228. That will be used specifically to upgrade the primary school serving line, which, and all of the items that are being replaced are too old to repair, whose make, model, manufacturer are no longer making such parts, or they're not available. So that's a huge bonus. Also, the middle school and the elementary school are going to have new food processors, which will assist with preparing more fresh foods in the school menus. Just for example, being able to, process carrots, onions, celery, things at a high level for high volume menus, that would take somebody a lot of time to manually do. It's just a great thing to look forward to. I'm so excited to be a part of the change and see these dreams, come true. They're my dreams. You just have to excuse my, excitement. Also at the middle school, they have 2 reach-in refrigerators and 2 heated cabinets which store food in between lunch service. They do batch cooking, but they need somewhere to put, all the food that they prepare. So these units as well are, outdated. They need to be replaced. The doors and parts and, pieces are unfortunately not available. So this is honestly a huge step forward for the food service department.
Any questions?
Nothing other than great job.
Yeah, thank you for doing this. So we're looking for a motion to approve.
I move to approve the School Nutrition Equipment Assistance Grant Award in the total amount of
$21,228?
Yes.
Yep.
If we're doing the consent item, are you trying to do the consent item agenda that's further down in the?
Oh.
She was just talking about the grant.
She was talking about the
Yeah.
grant.
We don't have to accept
Just
the
do-
grant
yeah,
yet.
we'll accept
yeah,
the
we'll
grant
do
when we get
that
to the
later.
consent
Yeah,
Okay.
and then I've got the actual verbiage in the agenda item summary that we need in the form too.
Beautiful.
And I want to thank Raquel as well for all of her work. This is not her first grant that she's done since
Right.
she's arrived here, and she does make every effort the minute something comes out there to apply for it, and she's been very successful. So I think the staff throughout the district is very happy with her efforts and with the equipment that they have that make things a lot better for them in doing their jobs as well, in serving breakfast and lunch to the students of the district. So.
I have one quick question. Are we doing a garden this year? I know it's been put off since COVID. Are we?
Well, one of my grants that's out in limbo right now is it's called the Mass Fresh, which is farming resources for schools. And I have applied for 3 hydroponic farms
Yeah.
that, if we get it, fingers crossed, would be front and center at the elementary, middle, and high school for them to see fresh herbs and fresh lettuces and leafy greens, not root vegetables, but other, small lettuces and things like that being grown right in the cafeteria. So, sweet. So coming soon, hopefully.
Fingers crossed, okay. Awesome. Thank you so
Thank you,
much.
Raquel.
Thank you,
Thank
Raquel.
you.
All right. Next on the agenda is just a quick update on staffing for special education. I know some members of the committee were there Monday night. A couple things have changed since then, some progress, so I want to update that. I have an interview tomorrow with an interim special education director. They're coming in and meeting with me and just starting the conversation to see if this is something we're interested in or they're interested in pursuing. So that preliminary conversation will happen tomorrow. Depending on how that goes, I'll make some more things public. I've reached out to NASDAQ, who is the agency that will run our special education search. They've sent in the process of putting together a proposal for me for what that search would look like, the cost of it. I had them tentatively scheduled for the school committee meeting for April 5th to come and present, and what they'll do is they'll give you an overview of their services, the process, what it'll look like, and then if we're amenable at that point, we will sign a contract with them and do that. So we're looking at having that on the April meeting. Today I had a second round interview with one of the two coordinator positions. They're going home and discussing it with their family to see if they're interested in taking the next step. If that next step happens, we will then do a community and a staff forum with that coordinator. I've asked Mrs. Keegan to chair the committee to look at a second coordinator. That process should be starting later on this week, beginning of next week for that. And then the final piece is, you know, and the most, well, they're all important, but probably one of the biggest pieces is who's going to be running the meetings and that. So we're finalizing, as I said on Monday, we reached a tentative agreement. We're finalizing the pieces of the negotiations and the contracts. For those of us who've done contract negotiations, you know, you got to give a little to, so it's been a back and forth in trying to iron out the language and finalize things. So that should be finalized, I'm hoping tomorrow. I said on Monday by middle to end of the week, and I think we're getting close to middle of the end of the week. So we'll do that. And then once I have information, I can feel comfortable rolling it out that it's firm, I'll be certain to share that publicly with everyone. So that's where we are with the hiring for the positions. Be more than happy to answer questions that the committee might have.
Just for anybody that's here, with the coordinator interview, you'll do a one call to ask community members to be part of the team? For the coordinator interview process, will you do an open invitation for community members to
The
be?
second one, you mean?
Yes.
So just like we did for the first one, just like we did for the principal, just like we're doing for the
So anybody that's interested would get an email and they could ask to be part of the process.
So typically what we've done for administrative positions is we have someone chair it. We usually have, you know, school committee member, administrator. If it's special education, we'll ask CPAC, we'll ask for family member, we'll ask for teachers. So those are usually about 5, 6, 7 people in size. So there will be at least 1 or 2 parent representatives on that committee.
Okay.
Yep. Anything else? All right. Next, taking something out of order, we're going to do the MCAS and middle of the year presentations. So we will have, we're going to start with, we'll work our way from elementary to middle to high school. So we'll start with Mr. DeFonso. I think the slides are aligned that way as well. This is just at the beginning of the year and at the end of last year, we presented what our plan was for how we're going to address some of our learning gaps. And the principals came in and they did a presentation with our MCAS data and put together some hypotheses and some action plans for how we're going to address the issues that they saw when the MCAS data came out in the fall. Wanted to do a mid-year, even though we're a little bit further beyond mid-year, do a mid-year update as to where they are with their goals for that. So that's what we're going to be presenting now. If I can get the slide to work.
Switch on the side, turn it on.
Should have started with that. All right, Mr. DeVonzo.
All right, so good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
So as we talked about earlier in the year, coming in, you try to see, especially as a new employee, what our areas of concern are. So with third grade, looking at that data, we saw a series of track record of dips in our students who are meeting and exceeding expectations. So that jumps out right off the bat as an area of concern. So in looking at that, these students lost critical years of literacy instruction based on COVID and the pandemic. So through Dr. Vieira and the district, we're able to obtain services of a literacy consultant, Claire Landrigan, this year. So each grade level is going to has had so far 3 sessions with her. We'll be having a 4th session in March for a cumulative total of 10 hours for each grade level. And the focus, like I said, as a literacy consultant, she has sat with teachers, she has worked with students, modeled for the teachers, debriefed with teachers, talked about different strategies they can implement. And the beauty of it is I've been able to be a part of that and gone through the PD with her as she has worked with teachers. So I've seen the modeling, and then the next day you can see it implemented in the classroom. So those areas, that right off the bat, that's a direct way that we have been addressing some of the literacy gaps. And while this is ELA we're talking about, literacy is such a pervasive skill, especially with math and MCAS, or where this is an MCAS presentation, math is becoming so wordy. A literacy skill is just as important almost as number sense these days in math because of the level of verbiage. So that has been one piece that has been a major bonus, and I appreciate that Dr. Vera has obtained that PD for us. The other piece too is, and I said this at the start of the year, for third graders, their first year of MCAS, this is the first time they're being asked to sit down at a computer and off the cuff write these very long, extensive writing pieces. I have a third grader at home, and I'm petrified as a parent. Because it just, I mean, the output, the way they type, it's a lot to ask. So when I met earlier in the year with the staff to go over the MCAS data, one of the things we talked about and that teachers have been able to do is begin to integrate writing pieces throughout the year that ask students to produce a little bit longer, a little bit more substantive. And one way in which we've done that is you can go through Edwin Desi security portal, and I was able to pull every single MCAS question from last year, open responses, essays, prompts, and shared those with teachers, so they've been able to use those and pull those throughout the year, which have accomplished a greater focus on more sustained writing pieces, exposure to the type of questions they ask on MCAS, just to get kids used to it, but also to get them writing more, which as a third grader, being their first year, I think that was a huge piece. So I've been very happy seeing that as they go through observations, meeting with teachers at our CPT meetings, to see that they've made that a concerted effort. So that's been nice to see. I mean, clearly, as in the next slide, you'll see. So we have certainly some positive trends we're seeing with some of our data from our beginning. Now, this is STAR testing, and obviously we don't have MCAS yet, but so our STAR testing is probably our closest correlation to how we might do on MCAS. So yes, there are pockets of success, and I'm very proud of that, but there are also areas that we clearly have room for improvement. And one of the things that we made it a point to see is, all right, yes, we went from 38 students at intervention urgent down to 19, so cutting that in half, excellent, but we still have those 19 kids, so what are we going to do about it? So we're starting with going from each kid at urgent intervention. We've identified those students. We said, what have they currently done to this point? What is data showing us? Where are they falling? What can we do differently? What can we do more of? What can we do better? And this is so. And I have a list. I don't have to read it. I wanted to read it all to you, but each of those bullets dictate some of the processes we've done to help each of those students. Some of those are the direct result of work through PD. Some of that is through CPT meetings, whether it's the SST referral process, which we've bolstered and increased the frequency of, just so we don't let students fall through the cracks. The more we can meet, the better we can support these kids on a consistent basis. So for grade 4, I'm sorry, I don't mean to read off my paper, just I'm going blinder as I get older, so I can't see as well. So fourth grade, and so this part wasn't a surprise where we had a lot of areas we needed to improve in fourth grade. The biggest piece, and I don't think this is unique to Douglas, is in the writing areas where we fell short compared to the state in just about each of the writing components. That was in third grade and fourth grade pretty consistently. So writing, I was a former ELA teacher, and unless you write more, it's really hard to get better. Unless you have more individualized instruction, it's hard to get better. To teach writing as a whole class is next to impossible. So what I appreciate that I'm seeing in the classrooms, which I'm trying to get to as much as I possibly can, is teachers doing a lot more work in smaller settings as much as they can with students, especially with the writing process. And some of the things that fourth grade we talked about doing as well is pulling those so the same thing I did for third grade, we're pulling those MCAS questions we have done for fourth grade as well. And it's just, again, the exposure, all right? third grade, while it's their first year, the jump to fourth grade, the MCAS testing, it's a big jump. They're asked to do a lot more. The expectation's greater, so they need to be exposed to it more. It's pretty tough to ask a 9-year-old to sit, like I said, hey, you're gonna sit down and write these massively long writing pieces without having any exposure to it. Integrating these throughout the year, exposing kids to it, is something that we've absolutely made a conscious effort to do. And what better way to do it than pulling from actual MCAS questions? They're all standards-based. It's nothing we're just pulling out of the blue. These are right aligned with our frameworks. They're very relevant. And like I said, the exposure is huge for kids.
Does the staff feel that doing that is helpful for the students?
So as we've talked in CPT meetings with staff, yeah, I absolutely believe that, and staff has been able to utilize that. So not just writing, but there's comprehension strategies, reading the passages. For example, poetry is always something that comes up in MCAS. So exposing a student to how those questions are framed, how to read a verse, how to analyze a poem. So things like that is so absolutely very valuable. Yeah. So the next slide. So obviously, the most glaring need that jumps out here is the urgent intervention students here as well. So to go from 19 at the beginning of the year to 18 is obviously an area of concern that's very clear. Made some gains here, but we're not satisfied, and those gains need to be increased. And through a lot of the activities that you see and processes in the bullets, we're doing that. So one of the bullets says, we use empowering writers, but fourth grade and meeting with them throughout the year, they're really focused on teaching the graphic organizer piece and paragraph organization. Why is that important? Because when you take a test like an MCAS or any kind of standardized testing, if you don't have any organization, your piece is off topic, you're going nowhere and you're just off the rails, and that's where you lose a lot of points. And you'll see that when you see the data that, oh wow, this is where we're losing points. So you see a problem, you see an area, and you focus on addressing that area. And they made a conscious effort with that, and they're also taking practice-based test responses. And half of that too is not just exposure to the test, but even how the mechanics of the test work, where it's all digital now. How you respond, what digital features can you use, how to actually even do it. So we've shared some tools where teachers can expose kids to practice tests, see what they look like. I was in a classroom today, they were working online on an open response and multiple choice questions, utilizing comprehension strategies they learned in class. It was really good. Kids were focused. They were, it's what you like to see. And I feel that's going to better prepare them. We also utilizing a lot of strategies from our DCAP, which was on the previous screen, but again, you can read those. So fifth grade, in fifth grade, we actually scored higher, I believe in every single category, either higher or equal to the state in MCAS for ELA, which is no small feat. That was excellent to see, and some of the things that we talked about doing is, again, the consistency and the expectation for that writing piece. Okay, so now you're in fifth grade, this is your third year taking it, the expectations are up, the ante is higher, all right, so this is now their third year, so they really should be able to be at the level where they can start to build that ability to build sustained writing pieces. So how do we do that? Giving students, again, and I don't mean to beat a dead horse, but they really they need a lot more greater opportunity to produce those writing pieces. Students who need more help, we have the utilization of a remediation para in the grade, so we're thankful for that position. That student, with the students identified in greatest need, we have this remediation para who will work with those students in addition to the para in the fifth grade, and the students. So having that many staff has allowed us to work with students in a more individualized manner, which I said, again, where writing is the biggest concern, and one of the biggest concerns, that I think that's really the only way to effectively do it. All right, so again, every grade, and I think I mentioned this, but every grade has had the PD with Ms. Landrigan. So every single teacher will have a total of 10 hours this year, and I know they worked with her last year as well. And she's, I mean, just sitting with her and talking with her and planning with her, she's an expert. And the staff really appreciate working with her, so that's been a big plus. So every grade has that. I have a hard time seeing. Again, because I feel it's such an important thing, I'll say it again, pulling questions that teachers can utilize, giving kids that exposure. And I know I keep at it beating a dead horse, but if it's important for one grade, I think it's important for every grade. And I think we start to see that expectation and that continual usage from grade to grade. I just think that's going to build and create a nice system of cyclical, where kids are going to see, okay, I've done this before. Okay, this is what I had to do differently. Okay, so that's been a big piece as well. And so one of the areas where we saw a weakness with a little bit lower scores for 5th grade was, and the teachers were concerned about, is conventions, grammar. So, I mean, I have a 7th grader at home, and he gets good grades, but sometimes I read his writing pieces. I'm like, all right, you haven't had a comma in about 6 sentences. Where are the periods? So, again, because that's one of the breakdowns on an MCAS, and it's a standard in 5th grade, what better way to utilize that than questions that they're going to see? We can use those prompts. We can use that opportunity to not only go over a student's output, his content, but also his conventions and grammar. Okay, so it's a great tool to use. Not the only tool, but it's a tool, and it's very helpful. And again, it's one of the strategies that I'm seeing a lot of in the classrooms, not just 5th grade, is per our DCAP, is the reteaching of concepts. Okay, yes, the scope and sequence may say, all right, you're supposed to be on this now, but if you're having students who are not understanding something, to just barrel on, that defeats the entire purpose of the learning process. You're actually snowballing it and setting them up not for success. So that's a part of our DCAP strategy that I think is very important. It may get overlooked, but I think it's an essential component that we do. So,
Before we move on to math at the elementary, any questions on ELA?
There's just a lot there.
There's a lot of
A lot
information.
there. And just a lot there.
Did you go over you need to go over these slides, Anthony?
yeah, I mean, so again, I don't want to read every note for you, but so this is NWA data, and this just shows you an overall breakdown of the percentile from the fall to the winter. But if you go to the next screen, Dr. Barry, yeah, so this screen, where the staff had identified, per our MCAS data and myself, 3 areas of concern were these 3 right here. So what I was able to do is I pulled that specific data for those specific areas of content to break down. Obviously, I'm not identifying which teacher is which here, just by classroom. The one thing that's a little funky, and for whatever reason I couldn't, but it was only giving me 3 teachers for whatever reason, and then I don't want to identify anyone. But what this shows you is 5 different levels of percentile. You have low, which is your 0 to 20%, your low average, 21 to 40, and you see the process, the pattern. So the number on the left indicates how many students, and the number on the right is the percentage of the grade. And that, like I said, writing, language, and vocabulary.
Is there any correlation between classrooms being inclusion classrooms and non-inclusion classrooms in the data on here?
Trying to think quick.
I know it's hard because you don't know. It would just be interesting to see if that
Yeah, I could certainly, at any point, I could certainly break that down with a little more clarity.
I know it's hard because you don't want to identify classrooms either, but I think it would just be good for us to
Sure.
kind of look at,
Absolutely, I agree with you. Yep. So math grade 3, the biggest weakness we saw coming out of the gates from last year was geometry. We scored 9% less than the state. Again, this is data I know you had seen back in the fall. So some of the things what we've done, there has been a increased level of focus with ST Math. So that's just one component of the things we're doing. But for example, one thing I'm proud of is we have a target date of 80% from the end of the year for ST Math. Last year we ended the year and I spoke to the ST Math people at, I believe it was 30%, 31%. We're on target now for 90%. So they were very, to have that growth. So just the reason I say that is because I think teachers are understanding the importance of it, starting to see the benefits of it. You know, is our data where we want it to be? Ultimately, no. Are we making pockets of growth? Yeah. But absolutely have room to grow, and we will do that. And I think I think our data at this point shows that we're on the upward trend. And I think through some of the activities we're doing, flexible grouping is a big one. I think that's huge. So if you homogeneously working with kids based on their ability level, you're giving them, at least in that respect, of what they need. So I'm proud of that, and like I said, we have plenty of room to grow, and that's something that we're going to make a focus. And like I said, for ELA, we know those kids who are below benchmark, especially those urgent ones. We don't just look at a big chart. We go kid by kid. All right, what has worked for Johnny so far? Where is he falling? What can we do at this level, at the building level, to help Johnny? And with the teachers through CPT meetings, potential SST referrals, Title I services, push in, pull out, depending on the level of need. We're doing what we can to address those students. So yeah, I know you saw this data last time. So you'll obviously see some pockets where we're doing really well. We increased our level of at or above pretty high, but we're obviously we still have students in that urgent level, and you don't want to forget any students at any level, but we want those 6 kids out of there, and if they don't exit urgent intervention level, the data can be disaggregated from STAR to indicate a grade level of equivalency. So we've seen some kids who they may still be in urgent, but they've gone from a 1.2 to like a 2.1. So that's actually 9 months of growth. So while they might be still in urgent, that's a positive that we're seeing. So we know we're trending in the right direction. And but we're obviously that is our focus, and those kids who need the most help, and we're going to do our best to get it. Grade 4. So it's interesting. Through all my years of math data analysis for MCAS, geometry, measurement data, or fractions are almost the 3 you can guarantee every year that are going to be low. And one of those things, one of the most universal qualities that are similar is those are often done later in the year. So what a lot of our teachers have done, especially with 4th grade, is we have tried to tweak our scope and sequence to be able to integrate certain areas that are covered later in the year, earlier in the year, measurement data being one of them. And same thing with ST Math, but one thing that's actually very interesting, and we've heard students actually say this, I had a teacher recently tell me at a CPT meeting, hey, when we started this new unit, a student said to me, oh, I saw this before in ST Math. So it's interesting that just by virtue of that, again, not the be-all, end-all, but it's a huge piece, they are getting exposure to different things. So that just by that sheer nature of the increased usage, students are getting a little bit more background information, knowledge. So the first time they see a fraction isn't that's the first time the unit starts. So I think that's a big piece.
The teachers have sorry to interrupt you. The teachers have the flexibility to play around with ST Math, right? And assign certain things to kids earlier on.
Yeah.
So if they knew some of these things were...
So it's interesting. I was fortunate to, Dr. Vera sent some of us to an ST Math conference, and I found it very interesting. One thing I didn't know about ST Math, and Beth just kind of stole my thunder. So let's say you have a group of students who are really struggling with adding mixed numbers. I'm just making it, right? You can go in there and customize an ST Math lesson strictly on that one standard for any student. If you have a student who's going through it like gangbusters, I asked a question. I said, what about the student who's mastered a grade level? What happens now? Do they just sit there? Because I didn't want that student just being stagnant. And so she's the woman, our representative, sent me all the information that we need to do that. Oh, you can do X, you can do Y. Here's a link for this. They can go to. So teachers have that as well. So we have some students now in 4th grade who are doing 5th grade. For those higher achieving students, we have mechanisms in which to challenge them more. For the students who are struggling, we have mechanisms to assist them more. Again, is it everything that needs to be done? No, and I understand that, but these are things that I think are going in the right direction.
And you can also set them up to do things that they feel good about, so that you can, you know, you don't want to just always give them the hard stuff.
No, and that helps build their confidence as well. Math is a big confidence content area.
Yeah.
If you're scared of math, you're already done. A lot of it's in the head, you know? Yeah. So this is data that you guys have seen, and obviously, again, not to repeat it again, but it speaks for itself, what area, a red flag there, which we need to focus on, and like I said, we know the 8 kids, we know where they're at, we know what they're currently receiving, we know what we're looking to, what else can we do above and beyond what we are doing to help get that number lower. Trying to think, yeah.
Are you, sorry, before you get to grade 5, I'm just really interested in knowing, you're doing another STARS assessment?
This week, yes.
Okay.
Yeah, so we always do, typically there's always one right off the bat, September, January, and end of the year. But we decided to do one as a district in March, because otherwise January to the end of the year is a pretty big gap of time. So rather than wait until the end of the year to find out that we tanked in one area, or let's find out mid-year in like a mid-cycle correction, so to speak, which that allows us to do. And a teacher, not that you want a kids, because we're running up at the MCAS. Our first MCAS is March 28th, so the time to doing any additional. But you can test other times if you want. With ELA, you can do quick progress monitoring checks, or you can do a full round of it. It is time consuming, but you have that flexibility. But so this will be our mid-year, mid-cycle, so to speak. So that'll be interesting to see how the trend's going and if we're kind of in the right direction with how we're going.
Yeah, I think particularly 4th grade is what I'd be interested in seeing
100%.
how this assessment goes. Yeah,
100%. Like I said, it's obvious number there, which is it's a red flag. And like I said, unfortunately, these are the COVID babies, so to speak, and are their deficits greater? But possibly. But I like to see some of the things that 4th grade's doing. For example, fractions was a big area of concern, so that they've made a little fraction Friday. And you know what? The kids actually say, when I'm in there, they seem kind of excited by it, but what it does is, this is their way of integrating it throughout the year. So kids aren't terrified the first time they see it. So it's good. And I was in there today, I saw kids working on ST math, specifically with fractions, so it was nice to see.
And your remediation para is grade 3 and 5?
Yes.
Okay.
3 and 5. Yep. There was a grade level para in grade 4, an inclusion para, but yes. Okay. The remediation's at 3 and 5. So for math, grade 5, so kind of the opposite of how grade 5 was with the ELA. Math was kind of the reverse. And this was when it coming in, so before I even started, I started looking at the data, and this was one thing that jumped out at me was math was consistently lower across all the grades. Where the ELA was higher. Why? So what things have changed? Just really maybe analyzing data a little bit more than maybe what was done in the past, I don't know. But again, like the other grades, we know those kids who are urgent. They don't word it that way in NWA, but it's more or less the same thing. Who's in the lower percentile, that 0 to 20 and that 21 to 40? Who are those kids? Our staff knows those kids. What are we doing? We do have that remediation para. We do have the grade level para. We have a team of departmentalized teachers, and we have a team of self-contained teachers. So the bottom line is we need to identify and be cognizant of where those students are, what strategies, or what content matter they are struggling in, and what we can do within the classroom to help those numbers increase in what they need to do.
We probably haven't had time this year, but have the teachers identified that they still feel like the math curriculum aligns with what we need to do for state standards and all that stuff? I know that we've really dived into data this year, but Is that on
Yeah.
the radar that do we feel like our math curriculum is appropriate? Do we feel like we need anything additional? Or you can say to me, we're not there yet and we haven't figured that out.
Yeah, I mean, I can't say that we've, done a major dive into that, but Go Math is an aligned curriculum approved by the state. So, I'm confident that we're in alignment with that. I tried to empower teachers. Like I said, if you need to teach something, do it. It's all right. If you're 2 days behind the schedule, I don't want that to take precedence over a student struggling who needs extra support in it. Utilize ST Math to your benefit. So teachers need to have. I feel like sometimes they may feel not scared, but uncertain about what they can do with their judgment. They're the professionals.
They need to be empowered in their class.
Teachers are in the trenches, they're the professionals, and I want to be able to support them and empower them to make those professional decisions based on their best discretion. So,
I think Bob says he has to be what do you say? You have to be the golf caddy? You have to be the golf caddy.
Yeah.
You have to be the best golf caddy.
yeah, that's a good analogy. And this is just a similar chart. So geometry was a big area of concern, as I mentioned. So it's geometry, fractions, and measurement data. You can pretty much bank on that. Teachers have made it a point to try to incorporate this when they can and give kids more opportunities to it. So we talked about science. We've actually had a very consistent run of science. And I think since the incorporation of new standards, I think teachers have done a really good job with that. We've used mystery science as a nice supplement to Houghton Mifflin Science Dimensions. Teachers seem to like that. I would love it in a perfect world if we had even more time with science, but I think given the time that we have, after ELA and math, I think the teachers do a wonderful job with that. So hopefully we can build on our performance over the last few years and continue that to outperform the state. I'd like to see that the difference be even greater. So that's something that we certainly hope to continue to capitalize on. Similar to data that you can certainly look at as you need to, but that's all right from the NWEA website.
Any questions on math or science for the elementary school?
I just noticed that when you had the curriculum analysis for ELA and math classrooms, that classroom 3 and 4, they all look the same, exactly the same.
Yeah.
I'm sure that's not just a very unique coincidence. Is that there's...
So it's funny, when I went on there, I was looking up the teachers and I made sure I was reading the name correct. Yep, that says that person's name, that says Smith, that says Johnson. What am I missing? There was I don't know why, but they would not differentiate between two of the teachers.
Okay.
So I didn't want to leave one blank and then say why. So for whatever
So
reason,
it's two classrooms kind of bulked together?
and I couldn't understand why it was like that.
Okay.
And I looked 16 different ways from Sunday, and there was for whatever reason, they did not differentiate off that fourth class. I don't know why.
Okay, I just wanted to
Yeah,
clarify.
I thought that was strange too, but yeah.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Franzo.
Thank you
Mr.
very much.
O'Brien, middle school.
Good evening, how are you?
Good, and you?
That's good. So just a comment real quick on the NWEA testing before we get there. It's not an apples to apples with the MCAS.
Yep.
So some of our goals and some of our hypotheses do not match up directly. But it did provide a lot of data and information that drove conversation between and amongst the teachers, a lot of information for our MTSS, multiple tiered system supports, and for our student support team. So there's some good hard data that helps us provide further services to the students. So it does have a great outcome that we can use beyond just guessing for MCAS scores. the test gets progressively harder as you go through it. So if you get a question right, it gets harder. If you get a question wrong, it goes back. That's frustrating for some students, especially if they get several wrong in a row. We did see a dip from the second round of testing to the third. However, this test was based on 32 weeks of schooling, and when our students tested, it was only after 20 weeks of schooling. So we're ahead of where the NWA projected we would be at this time. So this is for the spring, because we did a fall test. We did a winter after the end of second quarter, and then our January test was actually the spring test. So just some things to keep in mind. Grade 6, what the data was telling us at the beginning of the year when we got the MCAS is that in grade 6, every student in the 6th grade scored above the state average in every category on grade 6. That's amazing. And that's not just Ms. Martinson, it's not just Ms. Simmons, it's every teacher in that grade working together as a team to get those up. So when you come with a hypothesis of what can we do right, and we're seeing a tremendous amount of growth, we want to make sure we keep, not too much we need to change right there. So let's pinpoint what we need. And our action plan was to continue implementing strategies to enforce and foster reading comprehension and through the reading across the curriculum class that they have in 6th grade. So we stay the course, so to say. What have we learned? Students have shown growth throughout the year. In this data, 90% of 6th grade students scored low, average to exceeding in the last round of testing, including at this point, and again, where they should have been in week 32, and this was done in week 20, we had 22% of those students scoring exceeding expectations. Students were only above the state average by 1% in the area of reading craft and structure, and 3% in the area of key ideas and details. So that's where they're focusing in on reading across the curriculum. In each year, the students are different. Each year, the students have different strengths and weaknesses. So again, using the NWA testing helps us find that out along the way. And again, the plan that they have is working with 90% of the students scoring low, average to exceeding, with 22% scoring exceeding on this round of tests. We did see, look at the data, we did see a dip from November to January in the percentage. So how our teachers broke it down was, would they pass MCAS right at this time? So if you had above 220 on NWA, that would be meeting expectation on the MCAS. So we had strong growth between the beginning of the year in November, and then it dipped down. And when we announced that we were doing testing, I had quite a few students look at me, roll their eyes, and say, testing again? When you look at the test, you can see how long each student spent on the test. Believe it or not, there's a direct correlation between how little time you spend on the test and your score, and the longer you spend on it and a score.
Joking. My child was probably a little.
And it also will let you know if students just randomize, just hit the button randomly, and it takes into account that. It will give an alert. And it was tough, especially to the 7th grade, which we'll get to, is to motivate these students to do their best on a standardized test. Grade 7, as I've said before, is the most challenging grade in middle school.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yep.
Most of their thoughts are all by feelings and not by their executive functioning. Everything.
Very nicely put.
A lot of it comes from the amygdala, the caveman brain, and if they got, say, kicked out of their lunch group, friend group at lunch,
Yep.
they're going to go in a downward cycle for 2 weeks, and then they'll come around and they'll kick someone else out of that lunch group, and it's 7th grade behavior, and it is challenging, but we have to go through it and learn as they turn from children to adults. I think Mark Twain said, bury them at 13 and dig them up at 25. And my daughter was a sweet, precious angel in 5th grade and turned into Satan's spawn about halfway through that year. And now that she's 20, she's just pulling out of it at 20. So grade 7. And this is where the test did not line up as well as we would like it. Students, we need to increase the stamina, and as you've heard before, they're just not used to reading that. So in all that data, I'm looking for a copy of the test, and I don't see it. So I called the company several times, and they would not release the test. And I'm like, that doesn't help us that much. And they said it was proprietary information. So that really hurt us by looking at exactly what the question, you can say the standard and what they did, but to see what the kid did wrong or the student did wrong on each portion of it, that was frustrating. And I think by this point of MCAS, the state would provide their own MCAS assessment tool instead of us relying on a third-party vendor to provide it.
Yep.
So, in case any state reps are watching, that's my bid for that. So what we did, we're doing our in-class writing assessments. The students have shown growth. This is from the teachers themselves. They've shown growth. It's nice that they have the teachers take it all, not just laying it on the feet of the ELA teacher, but the history teacher will work with them on their writing as well. They give them lots of practice. What the data was telling us from last year is in the domain of language conventions of standard English, the 7th grade scored 13% below the state average. So we looked in some reason why, and our action plan was to incorporate explicit grammar instruction into the ELA curriculum. And nothing makes a 7th grade student more excited than to practice their grammar. This, again, the NWAA Common Formative Assessment did not directly address this. But class formative and summative assessments have shown improvements in students' grammar. So when we look at the data, we saw a great jump from beginning of the year to November, with 52% of the students in November passing MCAS at that time, if we just did it right over. But in January, again, we see the dip down. You can see the number of students, 75, 82, 87. That reflects the students moving out, students moving in, how many students were testing. If a student was hospitalized for a long time, it was on the forefront to measure, have the MCAS testing, the NWA testing, excuse me, on there just to get them pulled up to speed. But when we look at these reports and we see specifically, and it's like going down a YouTube rabbit hole of the data, and it's tremendous how much and what can we look at, what can we use. But when we see a student that needs showing low scores across the board, that student is identified. Again, there's a combination of could be some attendance issue, it could be social emotional issue, and then those students referred to the SST, and they work with Mrs. Peliquin a lot of the time in our academic development center to catch up on the skills that they were low in. So again, a good tool to help growth. Specifically in the 7th grade, and her classroom's right in that wing for a reason.
Mr. O'Brien.
Yes, ma'am.
This is just really telling to us, or to me, under hypothesis 2, the shortened class period resulted in 18 hours of lost ELA instruction in a year. That's a lot of time for teachers to have to try to make up for.
And then we fight that battle with, how much assessment do we want to do versus instruction. But if I could go back one sec for you asked earlier about the inclusion classes. So some data I have in front of me that you don't have for ELA, students in an inclusion class rose, this is specifically math, when we get there, tripled from passing the MCAS to scoring above 220. So we are seeing a lot of growth in those inclusion classes as well.
The teachers had my guess would be that the teachers had a greater opportunity to do small groups. When there's more than one of you, you can do more small groups. Yeah. So do we hit the grade 6? All right, grade 8.
And here was a question that we posed, that we came up with, that it was very difficult for the students to compare two different writing prompts, same question. So how is it character, and this story and that story are the same, how are they different? Without us seeing the test, we don't know if those questions were asked. But in the area of key idea and details, the data show that 45 out of 83 students, 54 scored average, high average, or high in those categories. So again, trending in the right direction. And the teachers themselves know that they need to continue working with two separate readings and have students find the similarities and differences among them. Very challenging. 7% on last year's MCAS scored below state average on knowledge of language. And again, there was only 4 little sections in NWEA, but again, 64% scored average, or high category. So keep working with them and then find supports for those students that are dragging behind. And a lot of that, I mean, none of these scores, when I was speaking to the teachers, none of these scores were too surprising. What was surprising with some students who, I said the amount of time on the test, and that some students who blasted through it also scored very well. So they can just see it, they can do it, they're strong in that subject area. Just want them to slow down a little bit, and they might be great peer tutors to them. We did not see the dip that we had in other grades in ELA for grade 8. So we see, from beginning of the year to now, we see an increase of 14%. Okay, and again, this test should have been done in week 32, not 20. Any questions on ELA before we move on to math? So for math, curriculum analysis, what is the data telling us? Given expression, students will select an equivalent expression. And this was a notable weakness, with students scoring 9% below the state average on one question and 20% below the state on another question. Could you just jump to the next slide real quick, Dr. Vieira? So this was an MCAS question, and 6th grade does question of the day. But if you can look at this question, you have to drag from the top box and match up each one of the bottom boxes. And if you get one wrong, the whole question is wrong. Which I don't think is fair to the students.
That's not fair.
You know, and if I'm looking at it real quick and have some trouble with the mouse, you can see mistakes happening. But there's a lot of questions like that. There's a lot of questions that were, which is not the answer, but the best answer of these things. And just teaching the students to slow down, read the question, and find out what they're asking. Mrs. Finley, you know, my 30 years of education, she's the best teacher I've ever seen. Just does an amazing job. I would want every student to have Miss Finley, and I'm glad we do it in Douglas, but I wish my own kids had her. I wish I had her, because she does a remarkable work. So every day she does an MCAS question of the day. We tried that with the 7th graders. It did not work as well, but that's just an example of the questions we're trying to help the students get through. So that was their strategy, is revamping math morning work slideshow to target algebra standards, including more multi-select questions. So we want them just to become habit practice. They just see it a lot. They can do it. Whatever we learned on the algebra subtest, students scored the highest on the algebra because again, like you hear a lot, that it's not, what they did poorly on were things that they were not taught yet. Okay. In some areas, there's a few kids that hit it out of the park. They just know those skills already. But again, that's being taught in March and April of this year. Of the 21% of the students who had scores reported in red, this is on the MCAS, 14% of these were due to the geometry standard, again, which comes later in the year. Out of the 40 questions, grade 6 scored 10% or higher than the state average on 25% of them. So the 6th grade team is greater than the sum of their parts. It should be used as an exemplar. The trend of grade 6 students showing substantial growth in math continues, and 79% of grade 6 students scored low average to exceeding in the last round of testing. So on those numbers. Went from 20 to 36 down to 34. Again, a little dip. Seeing that 16% increase was nice, but knowing that this test was covering a lot of material that they haven't seen already. We know what we have to focus on, and the teachers know what they have to reteach as well with these students. Grade 7, again, just having this data in the conversation it develops in common planning time, it's worth its weight just for that.
Ms. Elvis, do you have a question about grade
Yeah.
6?
Well, I just wanted to know, is there like an equivalent to ST Math in the elementary school where there's something there for kids to work on if they have mastered a concept that they're going over, or if they are ready to go to the next step when maybe the class is not? Is there something that they can work on silently?
There's not a program, per se, like ST Math we do not have, but the way that Mrs. Finley differentiates her problems in her testing and her grading, the students don't even know which tests they have and which targets they're focusing on. So I'll put it in her trusted hands to make sure she's moving the kids along at the right pace.
Mm-hmm.
So grade 7, we tried a couple different things, and I was happy to see that we changed that things what we thought would work. We tried to do in 7th grade the question of the day. That did not work for a number of reasons. Part of it is the grade 7 teachers it's a little more complicated math than they do in 6th grade. Mm-hmm. And it's also 7th grade is our newest formed team, and they're still looking for that team chemistry to develop like we have in the 6th and the 8th grade. So we're still working on that. Each number, students struggle with questions that had multiple answers. Each number may be used once, more than once, or not at all. It's just tough. So working on them, just understanding the question. So one of the grades is in grade 6, we have reading across the curriculum. In grade 7, we have writing across the curriculum. And the students rotate between. So when they have math, that's when they're doing these math problems for in between each quarter. So now I posed a question to the 7th grade staff on both. How are we going to get these kids? If we go look at that and the numbers real quick, from 23 to 35 to 34, how are we going to get them to where we need them to be in about 8 weeks? And they had a community meeting today where it was rolled out that they will have along the lines of baseball season. They're going to divide it up into 2 4-week season, divided up by teams, and there's nothing like friendly competition between 7th graders to get them trying to battle each other. Mm-hmm. So they will be working on MCAS test taking. They can earn points to cash in an auction that they have. But they're very clever. They say, if you don't have to get the question right, but show us that you annotated the text correctly, you can get a ticket for that.
They're motivated by those tickets.
They are motivated.
So we all know they're motivated by those tickets.
Yeah, and so they came up with a real clever plan. I'd like to see if it will work, and that's both for MCAS ELA and MCAS Math. The students were pretty excited to hear that today. They're going to have an all-star game between things, which right before April vacation, which will be a wiffle ball game on that Friday before April vacation. So you can see some buy-in and getting that student engagement is half the battle, especially in 7th grade. For the grade 8 math, what we were looking at is that for statistics and probability standard, the 8th grade student scored 4% less than the state. So we have to revisit that again, loop it in between throughout the year. And under the steady leadership of our most veteran teacher, Stephanie D'Amelio, 32% of students improved in the NWEA statistics and probability goal from winter to spring, and 38% scored in the high average to high performance category, 61% or higher accuracy. So again, as I leave it in the steady hands of Mrs. Finley in 6th grade and 8th grade, Ms. D'Amelio, she runs a tight ship, but she gets through to the kids, and they get on board, and she's a lot more gentle than I think kids believe her to be, as she's not as rigid as they first assume, because she goes out of her way to, again, make sure that the assignments are differentiated and making sure these students get what they want, and you know, to pull up the seat to the desk type things where let's have a conversation, and we'll do that. And on the other piece there, in the geometry standard, specifically in the topic of the Pythagorean theorem, the 8th grade student scored 2% less than the state. So far, by what we did this year, 35% of the students improved in their geometry goal performance from winter to spring, and 33% scored in the high average to high performance category, 61% or higher in accuracy. It's fun to look at how different grades scored, well, the same grade but different classes. And as each school year has their own personality, each class has its own personality, and a lesson that worked first thing in the morning, that was phenomenal, absolutely bombs after lunch. But on some of the growth that with Mrs. D'Amelio, she doubled the amount of students that were scoring that would pass the 234 mark. So each test in the NWA has a different score for where it would line up with the MCAS. So she did one class, she doubled that. Another class, she increased it by 35%. So in those specific classes. Questions on math, ELA, MCAS, NWEA?
The teachers that worked in middle school is a really hard time on a good year. Like on a good year, the teachers have worked extremely hard.
I'm
all year
very
long.
fortunate to work with a tremendous staff. The culture that they built long before I got there is amazing. And my job is to just keep rowing the boat in their direction. They're wonderful people.
They are. Thankfully blessed. Thank you.
And last but certainly not least, our high school.
You can just keep it on that slide, actually.
Okay.
Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
So you'll hear some similar themes at the high school that you have from the elementary and the middle school. We don't have STAR testing or NWEA, you know, to provide some of those hard data facts, but the conversations that have been ongoing with the core subjects and all of the teachers in reality really provide support for, again, what's been said along the lines. And I'd like to start with some common themes that we have here first at the high school that have been very positive for this year. And some of that is just the transition and coming back to a little bit of normalcy as well. And the first is the use of small group. Across the board, the staff has indicated that the use of small group, and some of it is purposeful in terms of assignment, and some of it is random in terms of assignment, and others is student choice when they're doing the small group work, has really benefited the students throughout the school year. Another common theme is the review of assessment data, and that's coming from whether it's a unit test or when we looked at midterm exams. It's looking at that information and how the students did maybe on specific questions, and reteaching if that's what needed to go back, or having the opportunity for the students to ask questions in the review. Feedback has also been the quality of feedback, whether it is written feedback, whether it's verbal feedback. There's a lot of peer feedback that's happening as well that we're seeing, which is helpful. And sometimes it can be as simple as just even the grammar piece and making sure that those basic skills are happening. And sometimes it's specific questions that are content related that if the student doesn't see or doesn't understand, then that question is posed to their peer as they're doing their peer feedback. And self-reflection as well. And again, that's not just in our core subjects. I was in a classroom today, and the teacher's asking the student, well, just step back and look at it, so just taking a couple of steps back and pausing and having that opportunity for some self-reflection for the student to then provide a critical eye on whatever it is that they're working on. And then the areas of support, whether it's our Flex Center to help our students and maybe provide some of those Tier 3 strategies that are needed, whether it's our co-teaching, again, bringing in some Tier 2 strategies and supporting our Tier 1 strategies, our academic support, looking at progress report data with our counselors in terms of the grades and, what are we seeing, how are we seeing the growth from quarter 2 to quarter 3, our grade levels as well, and as well as the end of quarter data. And again, looking at assessments with staff as well in I say critical eye, but not more of a helpful eye. It's okay, here's an assessment. Staff would provide the context of why or how the assessment was presented, and we do our notice and wonder and ask those questions and provide some feedback, which has been beneficial, and what has resulted from those conversations, as well as sharing of strategies that have happened, whether it's a quick little MCAS checklist that is put on student assessments, and that ownership put on the student of, have you read the question 5 times? Because that does seem to be continuous throughout the grade levels of students not reading the entire question. And so they're missing pieces. I think I might have correlated before to the recipe. You don't read the recipe before you start, and then you open the cabinet and you don't have what you need to make your cookies, concept. So it's things along that line. And then also another common theme has been the variety of assessments that have taken place. Again, whether it's hands-on projects, whether it is your writing to support the needs of the students being used to writing for a long time, whether it is going back and forth from screen to screen. So just the variety of assessments. And again, I just wanted to share those common themes throughout throughout the conversations that staff have had in common planning time, but also that you see them having in the hallways, and that you hear them having in the hallways too. Thank you. So starting with ELA, so we indicated, ELA just above the state average at the start in our domains. We do had subgroups with our high needs, disabilities, and males having lower percentages. So going back to the common themes that I just shared, that's where some of those strategies took place, and sometimes just organically, in terms of their instruction, these subgroups were addressed. So for ELA, what have we learned is, again, review of basic skills with students in need, emphasis with that 9th grade. I think I mentioned before, the 9th grade, especially as they were coming in, just needed they just needed attention, whether it was behavioral, whether it was understanding expectations socially. But I will share that as we have this discussion at the staff meeting in December, January, over the first 4 months, staff readily indicated that there was positive benefits and positive improvement with our 9th grade and all of those different areas. And especially when you have it socially and behaviorally, you're going to see it academically, right? Because they understand the expectations. They know what is needed in the classroom, and they know what they should be doing, and when they should be doing, and when they shouldn't be doing something. With that, again, just bringing in the common themes that I mentioned with ELA, and these conversations, as I stated, are happening through the common planning time and individually with teachers. And in English, we have a new teacher and one of our long-term subs, so there is a lot of sharing, there is a lot of mentoring that is happening in that department with our newbies, with our new staff. And then the test-taking strategies, and again, this is something that is common in all of our areas. As indicated, the flexible small group instruction and co-teaching certainly supports the student learning. Staff has indicated that the students do prefer the pen and paper over the computer, yet we know where MCAS is going, so utilizing and understanding the MCAS interface is certainly something that continues to be taught and being addressed and is used consistently. MCAS strategies and vocabulary and the short stories, like those have been constant all year in different variety of short stories as well, because we know there will be short stories on the MCAS. So the students have been exposed, again, as I just said, to different styles and different types, so that they, somehow, hopefully, between the 5-6 short stories they like 1 or 2 of them. They can relate to 1 or 2 of them, and so they're learning in that manner. And that's where the variety of assessments and the projects that reflect MCAS type questions have taken place. And again, the focus with with some of our students with higher needs is happening in our flex and in our academic support classes, because again, with the co-teaching, the teachers are in the classroom, they know what's happening, and then they can just translate that into that smaller group setting with the academic support, in addition to what might have been happening in the classroom to support our students in those different areas with English. I'm going to say with all of them, but this was just specifically noted with English. Any questions? With math, so again, indicated our subgroups were similar. That was noted at the start of the year. A lot of conversations with the Tier 1 strategies took place with our departments mid-year, again, December, January, all depending on when we were able to get our time together. And math, again, specifically indicated small group learning has certainly proven productive. And you'll see in the math classrooms, there are times that the desks will be in rows, but there's also times that the desks will be in pods, smaller pods. And again, some of the times that the seating is strategic, and other times it's where they want, that student choice. So just even having that different variety in the environment is stimulating for students. Sometimes they'll come in and be like, ooh, what are we doing today? Because the desks are in a different manner. And the math teachers share that, again, the Tier 1 strategies have certainly been incorporated, and they've shared those strategies with each other as well. There's been a lot of conversation, a lot of dialogue with the math to try and really help with those 9th graders, again, specifically as they were coming in. But also with our AP students, when we did an assessment analysis, just what does that look like, and also learning, having the math teachers know where the where the AP students are and what it is that they are being taught. And then the work together again with peers. And there's a lot of work that, whether it's the students getting up to the board to be able to explain the why, that is evident with the math classes. The preparation and stronger development with basic math skills, something we had really wanted to do was vertical alignment, and that just time. We just didn't have the time. We weren't able to coordinate that yet. And I will put yet because there's still a few months left. Curriculum-wise, the departments are just beginning to review their curriculums and where they're at and what it is that they need, and time will be provided in common planning time for them to address those matters, and we'll work together with a timeline. Again, it could just be common planning time that they need to go in and refresh. For example, English does that, and they refresh consistently, and math is something that they know that they want to do and go back and look at the standards and make stronger connections. So what time will be needed, we'll be able to provide some in-house PD, so put a sub in there so that the staff can get out and have those 2-3 hours to be consistent to look at what they need in those mapping, so that we can work that alignment here, and then hopefully moving forward there will be that opportunity for that vertical alignment to continue. Questions with math? Science. What the data was telling us back in the fall, again, indicated that the majority of students, and this is biology, again, just as a reminder, specific for the high school, and we do have students that will take that either in 9th grade or in 10th grade, all depending on their biology level. Pretty solid in terms of their scores with the meets expectations and the partially meet expectations. What they have learned so far is that the executive functioning skills need development, and respecting expectations as well. And again, that's just coming, the transition with the 9th grade, and even with the sophomores and to some degree, all the levels. But again, the 9th grade, that was evident. They were specific that they have seen improvement with that. And working with their co-teachers and implementing different strategies has certainly seen improvement in the completion of work, and as a result of that, the comprehension, and again, on their assessments, midterms being the largest one that they had, they were satisfied with where the students are at. And one thing that was also indicated was in many areas, they actually feel that they're ahead of the curriculum because they have been able to bring back that small group work, which has just stimulated the students in conversation and discussion and learning. And so they feel that that's been a very positive outcome. And then again, science was focusing on the larger reading passages, and so the collaboration again with the special ed department and the co-teaching to create an MCAS checklist. That's what I indicated before. Was and has been very helpful because again, it puts that ownership back on the student of have you, before you ask me, kind of the ask 3 before me. Have you read, reread? Have you gone back and looked? Have you underlined? Have you highlighted the important terminology? I was in a classroom earlier this week, and the students were reviewing the chapter and creating their own self-guided study guide and study questions. And there was a template that was available if they wanted it, but they were also able to create something that worked for them in terms of a study guide with make sure you have this and you have, A, B, C, D. And I need to follow up with the teacher to find out how those were completing. They were in their 3rd day of completing that and working through that. But diligently working through and pulling out the vocabulary and the definitions and pictures to help support that learning. So again, just different strategies for the students to learn the material. And again, they indicated that the students appreciate the pen and paper versus the computer, but again, it's that computer work is being integrated consistently.
So interesting from the amount of time my high schoolers spend on the internet and on their phone.
Any questions with science? We do have we've had retest. We'll be finishing up the second round of retest tomorrow. This week we had the snow day. It was supposed to be yesterday and today. So we do have a retest, and then we start our English MCAS at the end of the month, and then math will be after April vacation, and then science in June. So again, reviews will be happening for MCAS prior to all of that, and the focused attention in some of the areas with our students and the flex and the academic support have been ongoing with similar things. Sometimes MCAS information during the week or questions during the week, in different strategies that have been mentioned at the middle school.
Are the MCAS checklists available? Are they done for all the students, or are they just done for students?
All students.
Good.
Anybody else with any questions? Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Before moving on, I just want to thank the principals, but also their teachers and their teams for the work they've done to get to this point. Is there still work to do? 100%. Do we still have room for improvement? Absolutely. Is there stuff to celebrate? There's a lot to celebrate there, but you can see from this report the time they put into analyzing the data and presenting, so I just want to thank them publicly for that. Next is a very brief update on the preliminary FY24 budget presentation. There really isn't anything to present that was different than the March 1 budget. On April 5th, we will have our public hearing, which we will present our final budget to the school committee and the community in order to then be voted on at town meeting. So we'll present our final budget then. We've been working on some things behind the scenes. Last time, we were at about $720,000 delta to get down to our FY24 appropriation. We've been looking at grants, we've been looking at revolving funds, we've been looking at line items. So that's the work we're going to be doing over the next, I believe, 2 weeks to get down to that number. So that's where we're at for the budget. And the final thing for my report tonight is an update on the high school principal search. We had 15 people who applied for the position. We offered 7 interviews, and we actually ended up interviewing 6 people. So we started that process, I believe, about 2 weeks ago. We had a great team of, Ms. Sosa chaired it. We had 2 students, 2 teachers. We had a school committee representative. We had high school assistant principal, administrative assistant from the high school, and a parent on the committee. That committee forwarded 4 finalists to me. One of the finalists ended up withdrawing this week. So committee forwarded those 4 names this week, and on Monday we had the opportunity to have a meet and greet. We did 2 half-hour sessions, one with faculty and staff and one with families. At the conclusion of each of those, we had surveys for people to be able to offer me feedback on their thoughts on the candidates. And then next week, on Tuesday, Wednesday, and Friday, I'll be interviewing, along with Ms. Keegan, the 3 finalists. The hope after we do reference checks is to be able to announce the next principal by April 7th. So it'll give us some time for that. And that is it for my report for tonight.
Thank you. Moving on to the school committee and subcommittee report, the accounts payable report.
Sure. So, warrant 38 SCH 23 and 38 SCHL 23, warrant date 3/16/23 and 3/17/23, a total of 11 batches, a warrant dollar total of $74,910.13. Next was SCH 3623, 36 SCHL 23, warrant date 3/2/23 and 3/3/23, a total of 10 batches, a total dollar amount of $202,733.20. And this was the one that you did.
And warrant number 37 SCH 23 dated on March 9th, 2023 for 8 batches in the amount of $1,353.59. Nothing out of the ordinary was ignored at all. Moving on to the consent agenda. Is anyone if we take stuff out of order, just to get some of the people out of
If
here?
we could just do the marching band trip, please. for
Yes,
middle
then.
school.
The marching, DMS out-of-state marching band trip? Hi, how are you?
Good, how are you?
Good.
So the Douglas High School Marching Band, which includes several middle school students, which we're fortunate to have, are requesting to participate in the Providence St. Patrick's Day Parade, which is on Saturday, March 18th. We'll be going approximately at 10:15 a.m. from the high school for a parade that stops off at 12. We'll be back with the school by about 2:30 p.m. Throughout the parade route, there are police details, and the nearest medical facility is Roger Williams. The trip will include 23 students and 6 adults, which is approximately about 4 staff per student. And the entry fee is free for marching art groups, and we graciously have our costs for transportation covered by our music boosters.
Anybody have any questions? It's been a long time since we've gone back to St. Patrick's Day.
Oh,
so-
cool.
So,
Kids.
we're
I
looking
fully
forward to
support
it.
the St. Patrick's Day Parade.
Absolutely, Mr. O'Brien.
Mr. O'Brien?
I do.
All right.
So I'd be looking for a motion.
I move to approve the middle school students are in the high school band to participate in the out-of-state performance at the Providence St. Patrick's Day Parade, Providence, Rhode Island, on Saturday, March 18th, 2023.
Second.
Sorry, it's been a long night. I'm sorry. Motion made by Beth, seconded by Teresa. All those in favor? Aye. Anyone opposed? Anyone abstaining? Thank you so much for coming in and waiting tonight. Thank you. It would be okay to take the acceptance of the school nutrition equipment grant out of order too as well, and move that up?
Sure.
Well, actually, that's just a small thing, and actually, she's actually here for the school lunch program audit, which is at the very end. End of my report, if you're talking about Raquel. Yeah.
So the March 1st, 2023 meeting minutes.
No, I didn't see anything.
Anyone have any objections to making a motion?
I move to approve the March 1st, 2023 school committee meeting minutes.
Motion made by Monique, second by?
Second.
Second by Beth or Teresa? Which one? Beth. We'll go with Beth. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Anyone opposed? Anyone abstaining? Thanks. Next is the 2023-2024 school choice participation vote.
So a lot of numbers to look at here. So every year, the school committee votes whether or not to support school choice going forward. School choice is one of our main funding sources in order to keep our doors open and in order to make sure we have what we need for our students and our staff. So in front of you on the first page is a copy of our current by grade total number of students in school choice. So we have 97 students this year participating in school choice. Interestingly enough, we saw a spike this year at the high school. We also saw a lot of students who were school choice last year that moved into the district. I think there were about 10 to 15. So it's great that they move into Douglas, but we lose a school choice revenue. On the second page, you will see the proposal for what we are looking, if we cap everything and every slot is filled for school choice. And it would be a total of 145 seats. Before we get into discussion, I just want to call your attention to the third and fourth page. So on the third page is our current class sizes for 22-23. So you'll see in what we approved for school choice. So last year, we had 0 in grade 3, 0 in grade 4, 0 approved in grades. Did I have this backwards? Hold on. I'm sorry. It's 0 in grades 6, 7, and 8. That's what we had for school choice. on the last page for 23-24, you'll see the impact on class size, because that is so important. The impact on class size, if every single student that we had an open seat for decided to come to Douglas for school choice. So if you just start and go with me from grade K through 12. K, with our current school choice, is 16. We're recommending 5. Our new projected class size would be 17. It would go up 1 student. In grade 1, current class size is 19. With 5 extra students, it would go up to 22. In grade 2, there's current class size of 21. If we added 4 students and they all came, class size would go to, that should say 22. In grade 3, 18 students, proposing 11, that would go up to 23. Grade 4, we're capped at 0, we're keeping that. Grade 5, we're also capping and doing 0 and recommending 0 to keep that class size. Grade 6, class size of 20. If we add 7 students, we would have average class size of 22. Grade 7 is our high number, so we're not recommending any additional students in grade 7 to keep that average of 27. Grade 8 is right now at 20, recommending 8 students, which brings our class size to 21, 22. And our high school's so tricky just because the numbers are all over the place with singletons and different classes. So Mr. Romano just used to go 50 straight down the line. We tweaked that at 30, 30, 30, and 15, which brings your class size to about 19, and in the 11th grade, 24. But that fluctuates depending on what courses students take. So the acceptance of school choice gives us the opportunity to go out and advertise, gives us the opportunity to go out and get applications and accept school choice students for the 23-24 school year.
The one thing that sticks out to me is that grade 7 class size currently is 24 students for
Okay.
classroom size.
Mhm.
And that for next year for that grade, there's a proposal for adding 8 students to that grade. I feel like that's kind of putting some stress there.
We can reduce that to 4, to add 1 student. So amend grade 8.
Well, I mean, I honestly,
I
wouldn't want to add any. Because we've been talking about 6th grade with class sizes of 27 being very large and really not ideal. And I feel like 24, I wouldn't want to go up with that.
Well, Mr. O'Brien, you had us at 20 students in grade 8 for next year, correct? So if you add there's 5 sections. Every kid takes English, math, science, social studies, and Spanish. Thank you. So if you add 4, it would be 1 per class, how it would break down. So we'd go from 20 to 21.
So how does that change, how does it change from 7th grade to 8th grade in terms of disbursement of students?
The current 7th graders are now 8th.
So what happens is,
Well, in terms of like the teachers, how many classes are there? Because I'm seeing 7th graders, there's 24 per class, that's what I'm seeing. And those kids are going to be 8th graders next year. So how does it get dispersed differently?
Through the chair, because 90-some odd percent of 8th grade students also take Spanish, so there's actually 5 teachers at
Okay.
8th grade.
So 7th grade, there's 4?
3 classes there to teach 2 electives, so that's where more balance comes up.
Okay.
so the 97, in grade 6 and 7, you take the 97 and you divide by 4. In grade 8, you take the 97, you divide by 5.
Okay.
So it lowers the class size.
Okay.
These numbers were submitted to us by the principals.
Excuse me?
These were the principals' numbers that
Correct.
they thought.
So if we were to put 5 for 8th grade, that would make class size be 20? I mean,
The 8th grade, if we don't do
I'm
anything and
looking.
everyone comes back and no one moves in, average class size would be
it
20.
would be, okay.
If we added 8 students, average class size would go to about 21.5-ish. If we added 24, if we added 4 students, average class size would go to 20.8. If we added 5, 1 per class, average class size would be a straight 21.
And these numbers, Dr. Vieira, came up working with the teachers in each grade
Thank
level
you.
too. So they are aware of it. I said, where are you? What do you think you can take? And that's what they
Do the teachers feel comfortable with these numbers?
with that.
No, it does, because it's, they know their rooms. They know the size of their rooms. They know what they can.
I mean, they're probably not comfortable with the 27, but there's not a lot you can do. 'cause
Right,
that's how
right,
many
you
there
can't-
are.
They're there.
Right.
Potential,
It is what it is.
potential.
And
Yes.
especially teachers who've been in Douglas for a number of years, they also know that absent school choice, we lose a massive funding source
Right.
to keep our doors open.
I mean, knowing now that the classes are getting stretched out amongst more teachers and classrooms for the 8th grade, I mean, I feel a little bit more comfortable adding some students and knowing that the teachers have weighed in on this as well. I just want to avoid the 27.
As do we.
I really do. I don't want to see that again because that is not ideal.
And then next year, when those 7th graders become 8th graders, instead of that 108 being divided by 4, that 108 gets divided by 5, which will help lower that class size for the 8th graders.
Okay.
And that's just kind of the estimate, right? Because when they go into the electives, sometimes they're with like 6th, 7th, and 8th graders all in the same elective, right? Like the STEAM and stuff like that.
For the enrichment classes,
Yeah.
we have that, we're trying to eliminate that as much as we can for next year. Having
Yeah.
6th grade with an 8th grade is not ideal, I don't think, but we're trying to eliminate that as much as possible. But to have the schedule work, we do have to. Like music, we'll have 6, 7, 8.
Right.
Which makes sense. Chorus, yeah.
Gotcha.
Anybody else have any other thoughts?
It's a lot of numbers late at night.
The 7th grade is concerning.
Yeah.
I think that's not appropriate number. I will be, 27, I think is just too much at this point in time. I hear the staff. We hear everybody. I think that's.
I agree with that.
27, I think, we'll take two kids off and we're probably 25.
We're not adding any more school choice in grade 7, so,
Nothing.
for next year. So the 27 is with,
It's who's already here.
Right.
just the 6th graders coming up to
It's the 6th grade, right, that's available slots. That's what I'm talking about.
No, that's for the current 5th graders for next year. That's what they're, that's what
Available
he's saying.
spots, right, and that's
Yeah.
when you, so,
He's got 0 for the current 6th graders. which is
right, but
7th grade.
here, the 7th grader is.
0.
There's 2 sheets.
Yeah, so.
I know, we talked about that last time, and we put 0 in for this year. I think people are moving into the district, and that's kind of, that's affected some numbers too. There's a lot of fluctuation, I think, in middle school too, because people are moving out, people are moving in. But he's not proposing that we add more to that class.
Right, I know, but
Which is what
how
we
do we
need.
fix that? Because that's,
how do you fix the 27?
yeah,
The only way to fix the 27
I know.
is to
I know,
hire an
I
additional staff
know,
member.
I'm-
Instead of dividing 20, what is it, the 107 by 4, divide the 107 by 5. So it'd be hiring an additional staff member.
That would look a lot nicer, but.
Yes, sir.
Can I just chime in?
Yep, absolutely.
My apologies. For next year, we're looking at, and I spoke with the teachers about that, they're on board. Each teacher teaches 4 classes in that very approximate curriculum. We'd rather have them teach 5 classes and reduce that class size to 22 instead of 27. And we think with the lower size, that those students could be better served in the 5 classes instead of 4. So that's what we're looking to do next year, for the 27.
So who
So
teaches?
can you come up and just explain that?
Yeah.
Sorry.
So right now, each seventh grade teacher teaches 4 classes and running across the curriculum. Next year, what our plan is, and I'm discussing it currently with Dr. Vieira, have them teach 5 in their subject matter, so it would be 22 per class instead of 27.
Okay.
Yeah.
So where would the writing across the curriculum be incorporated?
We would eliminate that, and I think it's more important to have the 22 kids per class to get that instruction, as opposed to having 27 students in the class. We're also looking at rearranging some classrooms to give them more space upstairs where they're going to be.
So at one given time, there would be 5 classes going on? At any given time in the school? Because I know it goes through, like, there's blocks.
Right.
Would there
So-
be
right,
5 blocks?
And they'd have their enrichment and their related arts.
Okay.
I appreciate the proactive strategies to reduce our class sizes
And if the committee's comfortable with it, we can also do a 2-step process. We can vote to approve school choice tonight, and then with a fresher set of eyes, and more relaxed eyes, we can come back on April 5th and vote on a number of seats.
Actual numbers.
Once you've had a little more time to, with a fresher set of eyes, look at the numbers. But at least that gets us the ability to, early on, start the process of accepting applications.
I mean, I think budget-wise, we know that we need to have school choice students. It's just a given.
Yes, I'm not.
Yeah.
So do we want to make a motion, or do we want to table it?
So I move to approve the opening of school choice pending, and numbers will be visited another time
At April 4th.
at April
Or
4th.
5th, whatever.
5th.
Motion made by Beth, seconded by?
Second by Monique.
Second by Monique. So those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Anyone abstain?
And this at least gives us the ability to start the process of applying. Then we can, with a clean, fresher set of eyes, look at the numbers again. I believe that's the same exact thing that happened last year.
Yep.
We had the numbers, we were tired, we looked at it again a second time.
That's fine. Moving on to the FY '24 heating oil bid.
Okay, so just as we do every year, the French River Education Center, Inc., FREC, commonly known as FREC, we do our oil bid process through them. This year was a little bit different. We did have to hire, we did decide to hire Competitive Energy Services. They conducted the procurement because, as you know, things were extremely dicey. So we thought it was well worth it. And I know that the town administrator had put out an email about budgeting for $4 a gallon, $4.50 a gallon. You know, I had it at $3.50, but it put it up to $4 only because that email came out. But we went through the bid process through FREC, and we actually did a little bit differently as well, where we put out ultra-low sulfur heating oil and ultra-low sulfur heating oil B10 biofuel, and so we had 2 different things that we were looking at. So this particular contract is 1,648,000 gallons, and it's a total of 18 school districts and 3 municipalities for total contract price of over $5 million. So we ended up going with, there were 2 vendors that were interested in the one that we went with, and it was Peterson Oil and Dennis Burke, but Peterson did not return a bid for the ultra-low sulfur heating oil. So we ended up going with Dennis K. Burke, Inc. For 3.0442 per gallon. That is 14.42 cents more than the FY '23 price of $2.90 a gallon. So we thought that was really excellent. So we did make that reduction in our budget. That's part of what brought us down to where we are now. But that is just $12,257 over the FY '23 heating oil budget district-wide. The consultant fee was based on .025 per gallon, and our 85,000 gallons comes to $2,125. And that'll be invoiced and paid separately. That's not included in our oil bill in any way, shape, or form. So I was everybody was very, very happy with the results. And we really were so afraid of having to throw it out, or having to make the decision, oh my God, do we keep it or do we throw it out? But we were just so happy it just came out well.
Yep.
Does anyone have any questions?
Nope, you need oil.
Are we looking for a motion?
I move to accept the Dennis K. Burke, Inc. bid of $3.0 $4.42 per gallon for the purchase of ultra-low sulfur heating fuel, ULSHO, for fiscal year 2024 pursuant to the French River Education Center, Inc. invitation for bids.
Motion made by Teresa, seconded by? Second by Monique. All those in favor? Aye. Anyone opposed? Anyone abstaining? Thanks.
Thank you so much. And on the next one, if you want to just go ahead, because we've already gone through it, somebody just wants to make a motion to accept the grant. And that's just what we just have to do for each grant that we receive. And we can sign the paperwork afterwards.
I move to approve the following FY 2023 federal grant that has been applied for and the expenditure of funds as approved by DESI and/or amended and approved by DESI, FY 2023 School Nutrition Equipment Grant.
Motion made by Teresa,
And
seconded by?
if you could just add in the amount of $21,228, please.
Amount of $21,228.
Thank you, because it was actually reduced. Thank
Motion
you.
made by Teresa as amended, seconded by?
Second.
Second by Monique. All those in favor? Aye. Anyone opposed? Anyone abstaining? Thanks.
Okay, and moving on to the School Business and Operations Manager's report. I do have some transfers for you this evening, just basically trying to just keep catching up on it. So I know I brought a bunch last time, so I reran the report, did some more. So I don't know if anybody has, and the top ones are from administrators, top few.
Anyone have any questions on these? Okay. Nothing there. Moving to the next. Cal, do you want to come back up here with?
Did you make a motion?
I move to accept the FY 2023 General Fund Budget Transfer Number 8, School Committee, March 15th, 2023.
Okay, thank you.
Motion made by Beth, seconded by? Teresa. Second by Teresa. All those in favor? Aye. Anyone opposed? Anyone abstaining?
Okay, thank you so much. And I have Raquel Hammond, our Food Service Director, here this evening, just to talk about the Child Nutrition Programs Administrative Review. I just want to say before she starts, I don't want to steal her thunder in going over it, but I do want to say that Raquel did a wonderful job, and the auditor was very happy when they came in. They had everything in the binder, spent many hours putting everything together, and she made a comment, because I always go in afterwards and meet with them, with Raquel, with the auditor, and she said that she was very, very appreciative that she just handed her a binder, everything was right there, right in order, and all set, and it went very, very, very well. Just a few very minor things, which Raquel will be happy to go over, so I'll turn it over to you.
Thanks. So, and it is a team effort. So, so first and foremost, the school lunch and breakfast program is part of USDA, and so the Department of Education has to come out and review our program just to ensure that we're compliant with our policies and procedures. And that's due every 3 years. The last one was about 2019. So we were scheduled to be audited this December, right before the winter break. And so when they come out, basically there was like a pre-checklist, before the auditor comes, and then there's a whole slew of items that the auditor reviews on site. Those items are in great detail on the administrative review checklist, which is just kind of to show you the level of regulation that we're under. And so I kind of summarized that here under the discussion analysis area. You could see that the main areas of compliance are meal access and reimbursement, which in a nutshell is making sure that students have access to meals, that there's no discrimination in that sense, that the reimbursement rates are appropriate for the meals that we're serving. The meal pattern and nutritional quality has to do with school breakfast and lunch and snacks served throughout the school day. Resource management is essentially financial management and making sure that the school food service funds are being used appropriately. General program compliance, in a nutshell, is that the program is operating in the best interest of the students, and that there's minimal food waste, that there's usage of USDA foods, that the program is running smoothly, more or less. And then other federal program reviews is all of the in-between areas of the school breakfast and lunch program, such as civil rights, school wellness, smart snacks, and professional standards. So a lot of people may not even realize, from the food service director all the way down to the substitute cafeteria worker, there are mandatory levels of training per school year. So we've done a lot of professional development with our staff, and they really honestly do a great job. So if they're listening, I love you. So our administrative review was held at the middle school on December 20th. Overall, the program received positive reviews from the auditor, including menu variety and cleanliness of the kitchen and storerooms and walk-ins. The auditor issued a corrective action plan shortly after the audit was completed, and all the items on the corrective action plan were resolved as soon as possible. With factoring in a week off for winter vacation, the auditor officially closed the administrative review on January 26th. So if you see the corrective action items, I can just go over that really quick with you. So not all of the corrective action items needed, necessarily a specific, conclusion. Some of them were just technical assistance that they just, reviewed something with us and then we went forward. So the first example is the revenues from sales of non-program foods. So in non-USDA terms, that means, non-student meals, anything in between, a la carte sales, adult meals, adult a la carte sales, catering, supplies provided to, to people outside of the student meals, reimbursable. So there's a calculator tool that is used, it's a USDA tool, so we plug in the numbers that apply, and it turns out that in the previous school year, because it was post-COVID and the meals were not, being charged per meal, we didn't raise, meal prices the year before. There was no need. But that in turn made our calculator off by $28,000. So in a nutshell, the auditor is just recommending to make sure that we're keeping up with, the cost of non-program foods and making sure that we're charging appropriately. So that was that one. Civil rights is very straightforward. The USDA has recently modified their civil rights policy. I think it was January of '22. So basically what needs to be done is that the school student civil rights policy needs to specifically include language for meal modifications. So that is to basically make sure that as part of the student rights of coming to school, that they can have a meal modification without any extra charge. For example, gluten-free or dairy-free or whatnot.
Which of course we do. It's just that we have to incorporate that in our
It has
policy.
to, yeah. We definitely do that and beyond. But it's just, technical assistance that we just need to update our policy.
Mm-hmm. And we'll be bringing that into upcoming, for first, second, third readings coming soon.
Mm-hmm. The next one was that the school lunch account exceeded its net cash resources to greater than 3 months average expenditures. So Courtney and I have been working hand in hand with making sure the kitchens are stocked and supplied with what they need for everyday smallwares, major equipment replacements. For example, our high school needed a brand new dish machine. The one they had, unfortunately failed us in the middle of the school year.
Yeah.
So we can't always plan, major renovations.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes we can, sometimes we are surprised by them. So Courtney and I have definitely some plans to ensure that by the end of this school year, we don't have more than 3 months expenditures in the food service account.
Sounds like a good problem to have, but from their point of view, it isn't.
You know, it's hard because, you know, commercial food service equipment is
funny.
really expensive, but
Yeah.
you never know what you're gonna need to, you know.
Right.
So, so that was that one. Food safety was related to fire extinguisher procedures. Again, that's one of the newer regulations, which we're happily planning to do during the April vacation.
And we're also including the custodians in that too. We figure we're paying for it anyway. And a
Right.
number of participants for the same dollar amount. We figured, well, we'll include all 20 or more of people
Right.
at one time. And just do it. Because we were paying the same amount, we'll get it, everybody. And if there's any more space available, I might go to it, or a few others. It just will take up every single seat that's available for what we're paying.
Yes, like an official, you know, documented training.
Yeah.
And that will be annual from starting this year. And lastly, the school wellness policy was, you know, we were given technical assistance, no additional action required, but they're just recommending that we, in the wellness policy and the wellness committee, perform an assessment by the end of this school year. And so the assessment is basically a thorough review of the policy and ensuring that, you know, any areas of improvement are reviewed by the committee.
Anybody have any questions?
It's very thorough.
Yeah, wait,
Thank you.
Thank you. We need to make a motion on this, Courtney?
No, we just wanted to.
Thank you for waiting all that time.
Yes, I mean,
No problem.
I tried.
It's a long
I tried to
night.
go out of order.
Thank you very much, Raquel.
Thank you. All right. Any topics not anticipated?
Not tonight.
So, just a friendly reminder about April 5th, the superintendent's evaluation. He's going to come forth with us and bring his goals and objectives and what he's done, his blueprint to us, present to us. I will also be handing out, mailing to Lauren the superintendent's evaluation form for us to fill out. So we have there. I need to change my, the May 3rd meeting, if people could figure that out, to move it to April 26th, because I'm going to be on a business trip the week of May 3rd. We can vote on it for April 5th, or we can do it tonight if people need to think about it, but because that's when I would be presenting the superintendent's evaluation. So,
I just want to check one thing.
That's the Wednesday after vacation.
Okay.
Oh, it's after vacation.
it's after vacation.
Okay. I mean, I'm okay.
I'm fine with it.
I'm fine.
We can vote on it now if you want.
Courtney, are you fine?
Pretty sure. I mean, unfortunately, I can't get my calendar to go on here, so. but it should be
We can always talk about it again on the 5th
Should be fine.
if there's a problem that comes up.
Yeah, I mean,
We can't have it on
I think
the
it's fine,
3rd, right?
should be fine.
So we'll shoot for the 26th, and if we need to.
So, I don't think we have to make a motion. Do we have to make a motion for this? It's just an administrative thing, so just April 26th. So if we can have that updated for next school committee, that May 23rd is now April 26th.
And John, you can update that on the site too? Sure. Awesome.
Thank you. So we are going to go into executive session. An executive session is used to conduct strategy sessions in preparation for negotiation for non-union personnel or to conduct collective bargaining sessions or contract negotiations for non-union personnel. We will go into executive session and adjourn from executive session and not come back into the public session. So I make a motion to adjourn at 9:36 PM to go into executive session. I need a second.
A second.
Beth seconds. Motion made by Heather, seconded by Beth. All those in favor? Aye. Do we have to do a voice vote on this
You
one?
have to do a roll call vote.
Roll call vote on this, please.
Beth Bergstrom, aye.
Teresa Brooks, aye.
Monique Salvis, aye.
Heather Moore and aye. Okay,
Thank you. Have a good night, everyone.
thank you. I have a migraine, and I'm just like,
So sorry.
it's like.